Could have got him when he was walking across the stage. There's Stevie trying to get... There's Stevie. Who's next to Stevie? Oops. There's Stevie. There's Stevie.
On stage is our wind ensemble. This is our varsity group. And yes, okay. Always very proud of the varsity group. There's a disclaimer about Sleigh Ride. Sleigh Ride, when it was born, was not a Christmas song. In 1946, Mr. Anderson began composition on Sleigh Ride, but it had nothing to do with Christmas. It was in the middle of July in a heat wave in Connecticut. He finished it in 1948 in February, and has nothing to do with Christmas. It's about a man who loves his horse, and so he takes his horse out with a sleigh, and he has a wife, and they're just thrilled just to drive through the snow. And it was born with no words, okay? Nothing about Christmas, but then it was premiered Boston Pops Symphony. So it caught on very, very quickly, and then in 1950 they started putting words to it, and it still had nothing to do with Christmas. And then as the 50s went, it got really popular, and so they added pumpkin pie, they added all the Christmas things to it, and A Star Was Born. And right now, on our planet, this is the most requested and the most popular Christmas song all over the world. So here is Sleigh Ride.
To y'all's horse? When y'all did the sleigh ride, what happened to y'all's horse?
Did they make that sound easy?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. But see, that's not a band arrangement.
No.
That's the real Leroy Anderson arrangement that he did for the wind section of the Boston Pop Symphony. That's it. That's a workout. Whew. Especially coming out of football season where I'm just going. So that's another Leroy Anderson hymn. Fantastic American composer. And like I tell them, when they're having a hard day and they're not getting it just right, which, by the way, they did tonight, that wasn't written for teenagers. That was written for the Boston Pops. And so I'm very, very proud of them. How about everyone? We want to thank you for coming tonight. As you know, we have lots of stuff to move. We have to turn in our tuxedos and our gowns, and I know you've always been very, very patient with that. So we thank you, and I guess I can say this in public school. Merry Christmas.